Let us discuss what we just watched. So, 4 hour live stream. Thank you to the many that came out. Lots and lots of people in those live streams. And I understand that, the live streams for the channel, for people who may be new to them, we do tend to kind of stray from the topic and subject matter. But a lot of people are watching along with us anyways. So, it usually works out pretty well. And that's why I do a video like this right after. So the number one draft pick this year is Alexis Lafreniere. And I don't know how close this was in terms of, whether or not the Rangers even considered anybody else. I don't think they did. The number two pick, Quinton Byfield, goes to LA. Pretty smart move here. And, I understand why Byfield gets taken at second. So Stützle may very well end up being the better overall offensive player. He may end up being a huge star, but Byfield is that big, prototypical center. And just the upside with Byfield is so high that I can understand LA saying we need that big body down the middle. Byfield's perfect. At 3, the Senators with a big hit on their first pick. Tim Stützle, he's listed as a left winger, but he projects as a center, and I thought it was nice too that Alex Trebek announced the pick. These felt kind of staged early on. I thought, okay, so these picks, they knew what they were doing early on. And so the Senators, the first guy to put on the new throwback jersey that'll be the regular jersey next year is, in fact, Tim Stützle. And I really think that he's going to be a star. I think this is for the Ottawa Senators. It's nice to have Brady Tkachuk. It's nice to have some of these guys that they've got coming up, like Bernard Docker and Thompson. But Stützle may very well be that guy that they are building this team around. He may be that franchise player. He is that good. That's what the scouts say. At number 4, Detroit, Steve Yzerman, Lucas Raymond. Not a pick that is a reach in some people's eyes. Like last year, Moritz Seider was seen as kind of a bit of a reach, but he wasn't. And I think the year since then has borne out that Seider was a pretty smart pick. And Raymond may very well be ready to play for Detroit this year. So one big difference between this year's draft and other drafts before this is I've been doing deep dives on all these prospects. I've been looking at prospect lists all the way through. And there wasn't really a surprise for me in the top 4, where I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. At 5 is where the surprise hits. So the Ottawa Senators drafted a defenseman with their 5th pick, which didn't surprise me. It did surprise me that it was Jake Sanderson. Sanderson is seen as a pretty safe pick from everything I've seen. That, yes, he'll be an NHL-level defenseman. He's going to be a solid NHL defenseman. The question mark with Sanderson that I've seen from some scouts is how much offensive upside is there. And for the offensive upside, it's seen that Drysdale has that. Drysdale may have the better overall two-way play and could be like a Shea Weber-style defenseman, and Drysdale ends up going at 6 to Anaheim. So what's interesting is this is a draft that's seen as not being great for defense, and here we have at 5 and 6 the defense. And it's not that they aren't good defensemen, it's just that it's seen as being very, very solid draft when we come to overall depth at forward. And there were a lot of forwards taken in this first round. A lot of Canadian forwards taken in this first round. So a year after Americans dominated round 1, Canada kind of takes it back this year. So after those top 6, and Sanderson being a bit of a surprise, Drysdale was not, at 7, Alexander Holtz goes to New Jersey, right winger, and I think Devils fans will like Holtz a lot. Very solid, very good forward. And again, this draft, just from the overall hype around these guys, there's going to be some pressure on them pretty darn quick. I don't know how many of these guys end up making the NHL, but I've ballparked probably 6 out of the top 10 should get some time in the NHL this year. And Holtz, it would not surprise me if he's one of those guys. At 8, Buffalo shocked me, not going to lie. Absolutely shocked me by picking Jack Quinn. Now, I like Jack Quinn. All the reports I saw on him, he was a riser in this draft. He was seen as a guy who came out of nowhere. He's seen as a two-way forward that puts up a bunch of goals so he can play at both ends of the ice, and he has really good hands. If that projects and translates into an NHL role of that same variety, and if he can play on a line with, I don't know, Eichel, that could be huge. That could be the kind of tandem Buffalo really hasn't had. I know Skinner's had some chemistry with him being Eichel, of course, but I'm just saying that this could be on another level. That Quinn could be a 50-goal scorer playing on the wing for Eichel. Again, if it translates to the NHL level. So even though that's a bit of, it may be seen as a little bit of a reach and a little bit of a surprise at 8, I understand it. However, that meant that at 9, Minnesota gets Rossi. I have to think Bill Guerin, seeing Marco Rossi still available at 9, was overjoyed. Marco Rossi is exactly what you wanted if you're the Minnesota Wild. He is a dynamic forward who puts up a ton of points and actually could be a superstar in and of his own right at the NHL level. He's that good. And again, there were times this year where he was projected to be as high as 4th in the draft, and so getting him at 9th could be a huge steal. I love what Minnesota did getting Marco Rossi at 9. At 10, Winnipeg gets Cole Perfetti. So their consolation prize for not making the playoffs by losing in the play-in round against Calgary is Cole Perfetti. Not bad. Now, he's not that number 2 center that they need, and by saying not bad, I mean it's a very good pick. He's not, I don't think he's the number 2 center this coming season. So there was some expectation that, well, we've got to draft a center, but you're not looking for that number 2 center coming out of this draft, not when you're drafting at 10. So odds are Perfetti's going to need some time. He's going to need to add some muscle. He's going to need to get a little bigger. But Perfetti, I think Jets fans are going to really like him. Just from everything I read in prospect reports, I was surprised he slipped past New Jersey. So Perfetti's at 10. And then at 11, Askarov gets taken by Nashville. And Yaroslav Askarov, there's some risk because he's a goaltender, but I also understand for Nashville. So you've got Pekka Rinne is on his way out. This is likely his last year coming up, right? And then you've got UC Saros. Is Saros going to be the guy? And then who's behind Saros? And now the answer is Askarov. So this could be a very huge steal of a pick. Askarov is the highest rated goaltender in a draft since Vasilevsky. It'll probably take Askarov a couple of years to get there, but when he gets there, it could be fantastic. Which is why there was some discussion about whether or not Askarov might actually get taken in the top 10. There was a lot of discussion coming into the draft. It didn't happen, but he wasn't too far outside of it. Number 12, Florida had to be happy to see Anton Lundell was still available at 12. At the very least, he projects as a third-line center. So he projects as being a very good, solid two-way center. And, you know, he provides them with size. He provides them with a little bit of everything. Lundell was a good, safe pick for Florida. I think kind of a no-brainer. At 13, Carolina, with a pick they got from Toronto in exchange for Patrick Marleau. Seth Jarvis is the price that Toronto paid for Patrick Marleau. Right winger, and honestly, that could end up being a steep price for Toronto. That really could. Jarvis could be a very good forward for Carolina. His draft stock was kind of all over the place, depending on which prospect reports you were looking at, but we'll see. At 14, Dylan Holloway, center is drafted by the Oilers. I don't mind that pick. May very well project as a winger at the NHL level. You have to think, if it's going to be Draisaitl, McDavid, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins down the middle, then Holloway ends up on the wing, right? That could be a very good deal for Edmonton. And Holloway, he at the very least projects again to be an NHLer. At 15, Toronto kind of went a little bit off the board, not entirely. Rodion Amirov probably could have been had with the early 20s in the picks, but again, when you're up at the draft and you're saying, all right, well, we're up next, there might be a guy you may be able to get later on. Calgary did it, but in Toronto's case, they probably thought, no, we'll just take him. And this is not uncommon at the draft where you just say, oh, that's the guy we wanted and we drafted him. Amirov, one of those boomer bust types. So if Toronto does their job with developing him, as they've been able to do with some other forwards, that could be a steal right there. At 16, the Montreal Canadiens take Caden Gooley, defenseman. He does have a higher ceiling than his brother, who's been in and out of the NHL. But this younger brother, Gooley, pretty solid all-around defenseman. And again, the very least, so at the very least, he's going to be an NHL defenseman and should be a top 4 and pretty big kid. So for Montreal, that's a good move. I like that one. At 17, Chicago kind of surprised me by taking Lukas Reichel. A name that's not on the board today and will be on the board early tomorrow, John Jason Paderka. Lukas Reichel and maybe Chicago. Maybe Chicago right now is working the phones and saying, okay, if we can get one of those early draft picks and we can draft Pederka. We can come out of this draft with both Pederka and Reichel, who may very well have chemistry with each other at an NHL level, and the Blackhawks could look like geniuses if they could have one on one wing, one on the other, and Kirby Dach right in the middle. Tell me if you're a Hawk fan if that doesn't make you smile, because it should. So Reichel was, and again, when I was doing the prospect reports, and of course I've got the whole 2020 draft playlist, which I will link at the end of this video. I'll have that playlist probably in a corner, one of the corners. And Reichel was, on some sheets, he was listed after Pederka. Some scouts had him ahead of Pederka. And in this draft, clearly it was decided that Reichel was on the list and Pederka wasn't. So then at 18, the draft pick that the Arizona Coyotes gave up to New Jersey in exchange for Taylor Hall becomes centerman out of Newfoundland, Dawson Mercer. So Mercer, a center. So for New Jersey, they get Holtz. They get Mercer. And then I thought, that third pick, and I've mentioned this in other videos where I've talked about the draft, that with 3 picks in the first round, they might go for a little bit of a reach on that third pick. So they take Mercer at 18, a very safe pick. And again, a guy who's got a pretty decent, his floor is pretty high. At 19, the New York Rangers, likely seeing that Braden Schneider's still out there, they're like, we want Schneider. Or Calgary knew Rangers wanted Schneider. One or the other, they make the phone call. The Calgary Flames make the trade. They trade down to 22. We'll get to what Calgary did. Braden Schneider drafted by the Rangers, defenseman. That's huge. So I do think the Rangers did very well today. I honestly do. I considered just leaving a Rangers jersey on for this video because I thought, they did pretty well. But I thought, no, I want to talk about another team that did pretty well as well. Then New Jersey, with the 20th pick that they got from Tampa at the deadline, a pick that Tampa got from Vancouver, New Jersey says, you know what, we'll do this. And they pick up a guy whose name is brutal. I'm pretty sure I did a video on him. I'm pretty sure there's a video in that playlist on this player. Shakir Mahatmadulan. Anyways, I know that I practiced it for that video, and I said it a couple of times, like, all right, good. May never have to say it at the NHL level. Now it turns out I might. So he's a defenseman, goes to New Jersey. And again, for New Jersey, this was just one of those picks that he may end up being a bit of a reach, or it might look like genius 5 years from now. And then Columbus decided to break everything. The whole staff that was at the table and all these guys analyzing these picks when Yegor Chinnikov was announced as the pick. They're all like, who? What? And the funny thing was, he's a right winger, and Brian Burke said, I'm just going to say he's a winger because he had no idea, never heard of the kid. He was ranked 30th among European skaters. So this is one of those picks where you go off the board. Sometimes they work out really, really well. Sometimes they don't. So we could look back on this draft years down the road and say, well, Columbus reached there and they missed out on, and we could name off any number of prospects they missed out on, including the one that gets taken at 22nd. So the Calgary Flames, they made it so that this name almost didn't fit on the board. That Carolina's pick that went to the Rangers, that then got switched to the Flames, gets traded to the Capitals. And the Capitals use it to pick Hendrix Lapierre. Hendrix Lapierre, clearly a sigh of relief from him when he finally gets drafted at 22. Lapierre's an interesting one. If he hadn't got injured this year, he could have been as high as a top 10 pick. So they pick up a center here at 22 that could be a huge steal for Washington, and Calgary trades down. Now in these two drafts where they traded, or 2 picks they traded down with, those picks they now have third rounders that they didn't have before. So we'll see if Calgary has something else in mind for tomorrow. 23, the Philadelphia Flyers take Tyson Foerster, right winger. So they pick up another forward. Again, good player. We're looking at a very deep draft. So at 24, the Calgary Flames finally make a draft, and they pick up the guy that I thought they would. Connor Zary, still available at 24, center. That was the Washington Capitals pick. So we'll see years down the road, Lapierre versus Zary, and see if this was a good trade-off for Calgary, if they made a mistake. We have no way of knowing. Yeah, you're going to let me know in the comment section below, but we have no way of knowing. That's the beautiful thing about the draft, right? At 25, the Colorado Avalanche takes Justin Barron, defenseman. And again, Barron, split decisions on Barron and what his upside was among scouts. At 26, Jake Neighbors, St. Louis, left winger. I think he was on the don't draft list for elite prospects. Neighbors, physical, and again, projects to be one of those Blues type players that maybe he ends up being a third line energy guy. But when I heard that, and I thought, yeah, Neighbors, that does seem like a guy that would fit right in with St. Louis's plan. But at 27, Anaheim, with the pick they got from Boston around the deadline, Jacob Perreault, right winger. He slid in this draft, and I think with Anaheim picking up Jamie Drysdale and Jacob Perreault, I think they did really well here. So again, I picked the Anaheim jersey to wear because I think Anaheim did very, very well with these picks. And with Anaheim taking that one, Ottawa's picking next. And of course, after the Jake Sanderson, which to me was a bit of a head scratcher, hockey prospect, to their credit, had him at 5th on their draft list. They had Jamie Drysdale at 12th. So not every scouting system had Drysdale ahead of Sanderson. But at 28, safe pick, I would say, by Ottawa. They pick Ridley Gregg, a center. So they come out of this draft with a center in Gregg, a guy they want to convert to center in Stützle, and they come out of it with a defenseman and Jake Sanderson. I think Ottawa did well as well. So I was trying to decide between Anaheim and Ottawa. I thought, well, I'll wear Anaheim. Vegas, Brendan Brisson fell in this draft into their laps. And honestly, he's supposed to have a very good shot, very good player, and center there. And then Dallas comes up, and if you watch the live stream, you'll know I really wanted John Jason Paderka here. Again, this is one of those things that years later, people are going to be like, Shannon wanted Paderka. I didn't complain about Maverick Bourque, and I'm not going to complain about Maverick Bourque. A center for Dallas, and hopefully over the next couple of years, they can cultivate him into being that top 2 center this team needs. Dallas needs that, and hopefully the offense comes out as well, because Dallas really does need that. And I know they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. I know what they did. I'm aware I watched. But I still think Dallas could use a little bit more offensive upside. Their blue line's solid. Their goaltending with Jake Ottinger on his way to being at least the backup, I would think, if not this coming season, which may not happen because they want to keep Hudobin. But for next season, after this one, maybe. Makes sense to take a center. And then the final pick of the first round, this one actually caught me by surprise as well. At 30th, or 31st, I should say, San Jose takes Ozzy Weisblatt, right winger. Now, again, the playlist that I have on this channel of the prospects from this draft, I think the only one that is not, that I don't have a video for, I think the only one is Chinnikov for Columbus. So I'm going to have to fix that and do a video on him and try to figure out like exactly where Columbus is projecting him to play. Very, very good draft. A solid first round, and I think we're going to look back on this one. I'm going to compare it to 2015. Go back and look at 2015's first round. Pretty solid all-around first round, and I think this year's first round could very well project to be as good as that one. So, we'll see. I'm not going to do a boom or bust thing right now. I was mildly surprised at Jake Sanderson. A lot of people in the live stream were as well. And we'll see. We'll see what Pierre Dorian's got up his sleeve here for the rest of this week, and what Sanderson's role will be on the team. Because again, you've got Chabot. Sanderson might make a good pairing with Chabot. I don't know if they're the same hand. I don't really care. But we'll see. We'll see what the plan is with the Senators going forward. And again, Anaheim, I think they did a pretty good job. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, who you feel are the winners and the losers of the first round. And which draft pick caught you by surprise the most out of the first round picks. And again, tomorrow morning, we will be doing the live stream for the second round and beyond. And it's going to get crazy because it's a lot of picks. But, I'll do my best to keep up. And the live stream should be very, very interesting when that happens. Let me know your thoughts, though. Like I said, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, one thing I want to throw out there, too, is that for people that are worried that, what's going to happen to next season, the fact that the NHL is putting this amount of time and this amount of production into the draft, and the NHL is still going about its business. All 31 teams are going about their business. And the free agency on Friday looks like it's going to be, this crazy day. Tells me that the NHL absolutely intends to have a season this coming year, and it's a matter of when and how many games it's going to contain. But I'll be here to report on it when that happens. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.